Good day, students. This is Miss Cowart, and today we are going to explore the household budget a little bit further. We've done some vocabulary and we've read some articles about how much of your income you should set aside for different kinds of expenses. And today I'm going to show you a different way of looking at the information we've seen so far. And we're going to use Google Sheets to do that. So I've signed into my Google Drive account and I'm going to create a new sheet. And when you go into Google Sheets, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure your spreadsheet has a name. Today we're going to name our spreadsheet Household Budget Percent Guidelines. And before I start, I like to talk about the layout of the sheet program. As you can see, it's laid out in a grid. The up and down ones are called columns, and they're labeled with the letters of the alphabet, and the side-to-side ones are called rows, and they are labeled with numbers. That creates a grid that has a lot of boxes on it, and each box is called a cell. So the cells are named by the column and the row. So I'm currently highlighting A1. This would be D6, C8, B4, and so on. So it's very much like the game of Battleship. If you've ever played that, if you wanted to know if your opponent had a ship located in cell B4, you would ask B4 and he would say hit or miss. And depending on the size of the ship, you would either sink his battleship or it's just hit, and you would have to guess where the rest of the ship is. So that's how it's laid out. Now, all of our software we look at has various menu items and ways to do different things on the software. The first way is the drop-down menu, and you can click on those and you'll see a variety of things you can do to make your spreadsheet or to create it. And then there are also toolbars at the top that have icons on them. These activities are also contained in the drop-down menus. It's just another way of doing the whatever function it is. You can right-click on a cell, and it will give you a drop-down or a pop-up box with some activities you can do. And then it also tells you the fourth way, which is keyboard shortcuts, where you could make things happen. So whether you use the drop-down boxes or the icons or the right-click or the keyboard shortcut is really up to you. When I show you how to do activities, I'm going to use a combination of all of them. You can just kind of play around with the software and see which way works best for you. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to want to do is put my headings in, and we're only going to need 2 headings for this. The first one is expense, and the second one is percent of budget. Now you'll notice that my heading here is a little wider than my column. Now since it's a very small amount for this example, I'm just going to pull it out like that. But if it were a lot wider, you could always go up to text wrapping and turn that on, and it'll just make your row a little wider and it will accommodate all of the writing in your cell. So that's an option too. I'm going to turn that off though, because, oops, wrong one. Because it's just not that much wider and it'll be fine. Okay, now I like my headings to stand out on my table. So I'm going to click row 1 and I'm going to make all of the headings bold. That way, I got to make that a little wider now. That way they stand out a bit more. Now I'm going to go ahead and itemize all the expenses we've talked about. And that will take me just a second. Okay, now I'm going to put a total at the bottom of all of my expenses. And when I do that, I like to make my total bold and I like to put it on the right-hand alignment in the cell. Makes it stand out a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to put in the percent of my entire budget that each one of these expenses should take up. So that means these are going to be percentages. That means they're going to be parts of a whole. So if you think back in math class, percentages are designated by decimals. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my percentages that we read about, put them in the way they are. Okay, so now, since these are all part of a whole, then their total should equal 100%. So I'm going to double check myself by having my spreadsheet calculate that for me, and then I can show you how to put a formula in. But before I do that, I'm going to highlight my B column, and I'm going to choose to have these reflected as percentages rather than decimals. So I'm going to format the number differently and change the way it looks. I'm going to change it to a percent. And that way you can see better what percent of your budget each expense should take up. Now, as I said, all of these should equal 100% of your income. So I'm going to have this spreadsheet do a mathematical calculation for me to make my life easier. I'm going to do a double check. And so the way I do that, to start a formula in a cell, you're going to start with the equal sign. Now, this is a simple formula, and it's automated in the spreadsheet. So all you have to do is go up here to your icon menu and choose what looks like a backwards E or a sigma in the Roman alphabet. You're going to click on that and choose the sum function. Now, it's going to give me my total in cell B12. And so far it's telling me that it's going to sum up whatever I put in those parentheses in that sum. So I'm going to simply highlight all of the cells I want to add together, and it's going to fill in the formula for me. Yes, I'm going to say that again. It's going to put the formula in there for you, so that's awesome. It's going to sum up B2 through B12, as you can see indicated here, and it actually even gives you what the answer is going to be when you hit enter. Now, something I haven't mentioned yet on the screen is the formula bar. When I hit enter, the answer to this formula is going to show up in B12, but the formula that I put in is going to show up on the formula bar. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Now when I click on this cell, the answer is in B12 and the formula is up here. So that's pretty much it for our spreadsheet. I'm going to put borders on it by starting in the lower right-hand corner and highlighting up to A1. And then I'm going to choose my border option and choose the one that's all filled in so that I get a border around each box. Okay, now, I want to illustrate this breakdown for you on a chart, and I want to show you how to make charts. It's so easy to do in this program. I'm going to leave the total off, but I'm going to highlight all of my other data because that's everything I want contained in my chart. I'm going to do a pie chart breakdown of this budget. So I'm going to go over here and click charts. Now I could go up to the insert menu and click charts. It'll do the same thing. And then it's going to bring up a default of a bar chart, but I don't want that kind. I want a pie chart. So I'm going to click on chart type and choose the pie chart. And it's going to create the chart for me. Now I put it over my spreadsheet, so I'm going to have to move it around a little bit. So I'm going to click on it and just move it over here. And there you have it. Okay, so now you can see we've got our chart with our percent breakdown and all of our expenses. And then you can, for the right brain people in the room like me, you can see how that budget is broken down on a pie chart, and it's even color coded for you. So I hope that helps to illustrate to you how to break down your budget. These are rules to live by. I hope you have a great day. I'm signing off.